the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China.
Our next story is about China's secret project in Panama, which has frightened the United States. You must have seen the headlines. Well, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to take control of the Panama Canal, repeatedly accusing China of having control over it. And now, Panama, acting under pressure, has pledged to terminate a key deal with China. However, beyond the headlines, here's the question that has caught our attention today. What is China doing in Panama? Why has the U.S. president singled out China in his complaints about Panama? Let's understand, but first, here's the latest. On the 2nd of February, after meeting with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Panama's President Jose Raul Mulino declared that he would not renew a 2017 MOU with China to participate in the country's Belt and Road Initiative, also known as BRI. During the meeting, Mulino said that Panama's sovereignty would remain unchanged. He also indicated that the country would focus on strengthening ties with the U.S. and increasing U.S. investments in Panama. So, what is the scale of China-linked operations along the Panama Canal? And who actually controls the canal altogether? Well, here's a little history to it now. The 82-kilometer canal, which connects the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, was constructed and owned by the U.S. in the early 1900s. It was ultimately handed over to Panama in 1977 under a treaty that guaranteed its neutrality. The U.S. is the biggest user of the canal, accounting for about 3/4 of the cargo that passes through it each year. What about China now? It ranks as a distant second. Still, it has its influence here. There is a port at both the ends of this waterway. Both ports are operated by a Hong Kong-based company, and this is what Trump meant when he said China is based at both ends of the Panama Canal. While Trump's remark raised eyebrows, its roots lie in a concession awarded to a Hong Kong company. Previously called Hutchison Whampoa, it was given back in 1996. And this deal granted operational rights over Balboa and the Cristobal ports to a company that ultimately became Panama Ports Company, a subsidiary of C.K. Hutchison Holdings owned by billionaire Li Ka-shing. Although the contract allowed the company to manage the ports, it did not grant them ownership. In fact, just last year, Panama extended this concession for another 25 years to the Hong Kong-based company. In 1999, the U.S. State Department reassured the public that they found no evidence to suggest that China would gain control over canal operations. And fast forward to today, and there's still obviously a palpable tension. On Wednesday, China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Nining said, and I'm quoting here, China does not participate in the management and operation of the canal and has never interfered in the affairs of the canal. However, concerns linger. Some U.S. officials and experts express skepticism about a Chinese company's substantial presence in such a strategically important region. After all, in recent years, China has been forcing nations, including Panama, to forgo their ties with Taiwan in favor of diplomatic ties with Beijing. It is this move of China that has raised alarms in the U.S. Marco Rubio, Trump's Secretary of State and a noted China critic, has questioned whether such companies could act at China's behest. He has questioned whether these companies could potentially disrupt transit through the canal. Experts say that Beijing could exert pressure or even nationalize Hutchison's operations if it sees fit, particularly during a crisis. But that's not all. In 2017, China scored a major victory in Panama. Panama cut diplomatic ties with Taiwan, the self-governing island that China claims as its own. Panama had been one of the few countries worldwide that recognized Taiwan as a sovereign state. Then, the following year, Panama became the first Latin American country to sign on to the BRI, which, remember, is Xi Jinping's flagship global infrastructure program, otherwise known as China's tool of economic imperialism. Next, a flurry of promises followed. China proposed to build a 250-mile high-speed rail line from Panama City towards the western border with Costa Rica. Beijing also offered to build a new subway line in Panama City. In fact, a slew of Chinese companies even began working on a container port. And that was promised to be Panama's most modern one. Beijing was clear. It wanted to strengthen its support in Panama City. In 2018, Chinese President Xi Jinping visited Panama for the first state visit by a Chinese leader. It did not stop there. Beijing also stepped up its soft power efforts. A Confucius Institute was opened in Panama to promote Chinese culture and language. And that's when the COVID-19 pandemic hit. China donated healthcare supplies, but as China's influence grew over Panama, so did the pressure from the US for Panama to distance itself from Beijing. Could all these moves by China then be the real motivation behind Trump's new threats? It could. What does Panama say about all this? The president of Panama, Jose Raul Mulino, has denied that there is any foreign influence of the two ports in question. He says, and I quote, "The canal is and will remain Panama's, but if the events are any indication, it's become clear that the Panama Canal is not just a passage for ships. It has become a battleground of influence." And the question being, how will all this play out in the coming months? We'll have to wait and watch. Well, shifting our focus to West Asia now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will soon meet US President Donald Trump in Washington, D.C., and that's on the 4th of February. This, by the way, is Netanyahu's first foreign visit after facing an arrest warrant from the international. On to Pakistan now, which seems to be facing attacks from multiple fronts. The reason why we are saying this is because, as per a think tank, Pakistan witnessed a sharp increase in terror attacks in January 2025, surging by 42% as compared to the previous month. But it's not just terrorism that plagues Pakistan's state of affairs, but a combination of factors, including Imran Khan and his party's position on the Shehbaz Sharif-led regime. Hanging by a thread, add to that, is US's temporary suspension of foreign aids to Pakistan and a churn in the Pakistan judiciary. Let's go over all of them one by one. On Monday, quoting the data released by the Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies, or the PICSS, at least 74 terror attacks were recorded nationwide, resulting in a total of 91 fatalities, including 35 security personnel, 20 civilians, and 36 militants. Meanwhile, another 117 individuals suffered injuries, including 53 security forces personnel, 54 civilians, and 10 terrorists. Not just that. The report also highlighted an intensified counter-terrorism campaign by security forces, which led to elimination of at least 185 terrorists in the month of January, thus making it the second deadliest month for militant casualties since 2016. The report further stated that Khyber Pakhtunkhwa remained the worst affected province, followed by Balochistan, where 2 suicide bombings have been reported. What explains this? One of the reasons attributed behind this is the growing ambitions of the Pakistani Taliban right on Pakistani soil. Well, I'm talking about Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan of the TTP and its dreams to follow the Afghan Taliban's footsteps by carving out its own emirate. Meanwhile, Pakistan's political crisis shows no signs of abating as well, with Imran Khan accusing the Shehbaz Sharif-led government for current economic and political turmoil in the country. Khan also stressed that the current government is only bothered with having its grip on power, while turning a blind eye to global warnings. Late last year, the leader of the opposition and a member of Imran Khan's party, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, or the PTI, had initiated negotiations on several contentious issues, including the release of imprisoned PTI leaders, as well as addressing alleged electoral fraud in last year's controversial elections. So far, 3 rounds of talks have taken place, but unfortunately with no decisive outcomes to any of them. Meanwhile, the conviction of Imran Khan when the negotiations were underway made it harder for any resolution to come out of it. If these aren't compelling enough, the temporary suspension of US aids to Pakistan for revaluation purposes signed in an executive order by Trump. And that has now spelled doom for Pakistan's economy, which is already in a dire situation. Even as the US is yet to announce exactly how much aid will be cut, experts believe that the total impact of the visible aid suspension might be over $900 million US. Not just that, this move has also stopped a number of important US-led projects in Pakistan. 5 projects related to the energy sector have also come to a halt as a result of this decision. You see, this worsens the position of Pakistan even more, which is already reeling under a bunch of internal crises. The latest flashpoint being the Pakistan judiciary. Well, what happened there? On Friday, 5 judges of the Islamabad High Court, or the IHC, penned a letter to the Chief Justices of the Supreme Court and High Courts, urging them to take a stand against reports of a transferred judge being appointed to the IHC's top seat. This brings Pakistan's 26th Amendment of the Constitution back to the spotlight and its attempts to subjugate the judiciary to the current regime in Pakistan, which basically threatens the independence of the judiciary. Well, the moot point now is Pakistan is in the grip of multiple crises, not from one, two, but from multiple fronts. The question is, can Pakistan survive these storms? But that only time will tell. West Asia, about multiple countries in West Asia, in fact, who are shifting alliances, conducting high-stakes meetings and power recalibrations that could reshape the region's future. Firstly, Syria's newly appointed president, Ahmad al-Shara, has made his first official trip abroad, choosing Saudi Arabia as his destination. His meeting with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman reportedly marks a pivotal moment, symbolizing Syria's intent to pivot towards new alliances. As per reports, al-Shara praised Saudi Arabia's, and I'm quoting here, genuine commitment to supporting Syria's reconstruction and future stability. The discussions reportedly focused on cooperation in energy, technology, education and healthcare. But the question being, why Riyadh first? Well, according to reports, al-Shara aimed to signal the importance his government places on Saudi Arabia's role in the new Syrian era. Perhaps a strategic message to the region and beyond, that Syria is looking for new partnerships, for new ties. Remember, al-Shara is not just any leader. He spearheaded the Syrian opposition's successful effort to topple the long-standing regime of Bashar al-Assad last December, following a rapid and decisive campaign across the country. Since assuming power, his administration has been trying to gain legitimacy both regionally and also on the global stage. A key part of that effort, pushing for the removal of crippling Western sanctions on Syria that have suffocated Syria's economy for years. And Saudi Arabia reportedly seems to be an important ally in this quest. Just last week, Saudi Foreign Minister visited Damascus, reportedly signaling Riyadh's readiness to engage actively with European nations and the United States to advocate for lifting these sanctions on Syria. Now, Al-Shara Saudi visit reportedly appears designed to reinforce that very commitment and secure concrete support. But this trip is not just about economic recovery. It also marks a major shift in Syria's geopolitical alignment. Damascus seems to be no longer leaning heavily on Iran and Russia, which are both staunch allies of former President Bashar al-Assad. Syria is signaling a pivot towards new regional partnerships, towards new regional ties. And that's not just a shift in policy, it's a realignment. Meanwhile, diplomatic ripples are spreading beyond Syria. Qatar's Emir, Sheikh Tamim bin Ahmed Al Thani, made a historic visit to Damascus last Thursday, becoming the first Arab leader to do so since Assad's ouster, a sign that Arab nations are recalibrating their ties with Syria's new leadership, perhaps even competing to influence its future trajectory. In yet another diplomatic maneuver, Jordan's King Abdullah II has accepted an invitation to meet US President Donald Trump at the White House later this month. And this will be the first face-to-face meeting since Trump's return to office, and the stakes could not be higher. Trump has proposed a plan about resettling Palestinians from Gaza, floating the idea that Egypt and Jordan could absorb displaced populations from Gaza. Well, both the countries have rejected this proposal, standing very firm despite Washington's pressure. Trump, however, remains undeterred. Just last week, he openly stated that he's pressed King Abdullah II to take in Gazans. Jordan's stance has been clear as well. In Brussels, King Abdullah reaffirmed his country's support for the two-state solution, emphasizing that Palestinians must have the right to their own land, a sentiment resonating across the region. Top diplomats from Egypt, Jordan, the UAE, Saudi Arabia and Qatar met in Cairo, issuing a unified rejection of any forced displacement of Gazans. As per reports, the joint stance sends a strong message that Arab nations may differ on many issues, but on Palestine, they draw a red line. Meanwhile, in yet another development on the diplomatic front, according to Russian media, a Hamas delegation led by senior Politburo member Mosa Abu Marzouk is heading to Moscow for high-level talks with the Russian Foreign Ministry. Well, Russia maintains channels with all key players in West Asia, such as Israel, Iran, Lebanon, the Palestinian Authority, and even Hamas. This positions Moscow as a unique power broker capable of influencing outcomes where others hit diplomatic dead ends. So what do we make of all of this? What we are witnessing is not just a series of isolated meetings. It could be a comprehensive reordering of West Asia's political landscape. Old alliances are fading, new partnerships are emerging, and countries in West Asia are recalculating their interests, not with borders, but this time with diplomacy.